You're listening to the Kristof podcast, a podcast where I have conversations with inspirational people. My name is Chris, but my family calls me Kristof. My goal is to have as many conversations as possible with people who have forged their own path by pursuing their dreams, making them a reality, all the while emitting positivity and sharing this knowledge with others. I seek these people out and share this information with you, proving to the world that you can do what makes you happy and do what you want for a living while being a good human being. We'll talk about careers, but we'll also cover any story that inspires. Let's do this while helping each other. Thanks for listening. I'm happy you're here. Hey everyone, welcome to Conversation 29 of the Kristof Lewis podcast, where I have conversations with inspirational people. So today I'm talking to a friend of mine. Her name is Brittany Bates. Now Brittany is the mother of twins, a little boy and a little girl. They're 3 years old, and the boy is on the spectrum for autism. So it was very near and dear to me that we talk about this because I know she's starting a blog, and as I've discussed on the podcast with you listeners as well, and with my guests, is if you're struggling with something in your life and you think you're the only one going through it, yes, it's very relevant to you. And it's so important, but somebody else is going through it as well. So share your story, and it can be tough. It can be so tough. I know me speaking to you, looking at you for those on YouTube, it's so tough to have a one-way audience, and there's always somebody that's going to say something negative, but you're going to help somebody with your story. So that's why I'm doing this, and that's why Brittany's sharing her story. I couldn't be more thankful that she's on here talking about this. It's been an incredible journey for her, and she wants to help people with her story here on the podcast, and then eventually and very soon on her blog. So I couldn't be more thankful for her being here today and telling us her journey and sharing her positivity and her life. Brittany, thanks so much for being here with me today.
Yeah.
I'm
excited.
Yeah, I'm absolutely excited to have you on here. Like I mentioned in the intro, you just bring such a uniqueness to this channel, and the channel is definitely guided. It's obviously conversations with inspirational people like we were talking, but you 100% hit that inspirational person bracket. You fill it fully, and it's not just about careers, but I want to help people in general, and what we're about to get into completely encompasses that. So thank you.
Yeah, it's honestly, you can say the career part, but if you don't have your inner self right, nothing else is going to come to fruition. And you're going to, just even on some of the other podcasts that I've watched with you, it's that kind of like, when is it my time? And you can play that game all day long. But if you don't focus on your self-identity, whether it projects out onto work or as being a parent, if you don't have yourself right and centered, it's going to feel like you're in an uphill battle all the more every day.
Yeah, it's a really predominant thing that portrays itself and comes out in this podcast time in and time again, and it starts within. And I know more than anything, it's something that I think as a parent, I don't know yet. I can't speak from experience of yet, a few more months, but I can imagine from a parent, how are you going to be able to teach your children? How are you going to raise them properly if you don't know how to essentially raise yourself?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny, like my mom has always said, like there's no rule book or handbook that's given to you after you've had your children that says, here, this is, if this situation happens, then you do X, Y, and Z. Really, you just kind of have to take every single situation as it comes at you. And I mean, no parent ever anticipates or dreams of, why would you put that in your head, that your child's going to have difficulties of any kind, whether it be social or something a little bit deeper. You just have to take it one day at a time. That's all you can do. You can't predict what's going to happen to your children. You can't plan it out. Just with Aiden, our son, who's on the spectrum, that was a huge pill to swallow. And only now, almost 3 years later, am I really accepting it and just going full force and saying, okay, this is our reality. Let's do this.
And that's a long time. So you have two children. So everybody that doesn't know Brittany knows your story. You have two children. I know they differentiate. How would you describe that?
So even in that, there's still so much to learn. It's hard because even as a parent, like you hate those boxes. Even if you have a child that is quote unquote normal, how can you ever put your child in a box? But as far as on the spectrum, there's, high functioning to low functioning and everywhere in between. But Aiden definitely is more high functioning, but he is nonverbal, which builds in a whole another layer of things onto itself. And but it's remarkable how much your children teach you. And even before us even deciding to have children in college, I always took American Sign Language classes, and I was a special education major up until I met my husband and things shifted a little bit. And it's just so funny that the universe put both these children into my lap.
That is pretty incredible to have done that, have that background in that, have a little bit of a foundation, and then the sign language I know is huge. I mean, I've seen that in toddlers in general, and I think it's an amazing tool to be able to have. So the fact that you're able to implement that is incredible.
Oh, absolutely. And Aubrey is the funniest little kid, and she just loves to help and loves to pretend that she's Aiden's mom. And but she's catching on to it too and signing as much as she can. And Aiden is just now starting to where you can really engage and enjoy his personality. And it's funny, like this, I always use the expression, like whenever you lust after a new car or you just buy a new car and then suddenly you see them all over the road, you never saw them before, but suddenly they're everywhere. It's kind of the same thing with autism moms. It's like I felt so isolated for so long, not really. And I think a lot of it was not accepting it yet. And it wasn't until I accepted this is my reality that the help came. But the second I started posting about it on Instagram or just checking out blogs and commenting on things, just this outpour of support and intel of what to expect. And I mean, it's just really incredible. It's really incredible.
No, that makes complete sense to me. I think that, you're already talking about learning how to align yourself before you go teach, and even that doesn't have necessarily a playbook. But I think one huge thing with that is it's okay to ask for help, right? So especially in this sense, if you don't go out and ask for help, how can you, for the most part, expect for somebody to come help you when they don't know you're in need of help? So I think whether you're talking about parenting or just if you need help in general, someone to talk to, if you're not going out there and you're not seeking it, it's not a bad thing. It's not, don't ever be afraid to go out and seek the help that you may need. And I just think that's a really important thing. I've done that as well, even in this podcast, which is completely different than parenting. But I mean, it's something that, I'm struggling with building. And so I've reached out, and I know there's no comparison there, but I'm like, I can do it by myself, but I can't do it all by myself, and it's okay to build a team, and it's okay to get help. So of course in your situation, it's okay to go out there and reach out, and I'm so glad to hear that it's completely reciprocated.
Oh yeah, and it's like you were saying, like you can't, how much of life can we actually do on our own? I mean, we're self-sufficient to a point, but we're pack animals, and there's a reason that we like to be around other people. And I feel like if you don't ask for the help, or if you isolate yourself too much, then you're putting so much more of a burden on you when it's so unnecessary. And just being a parent, or whether work's stressing you out, like just being able to take a step back and figure out, okay, what is it about my job or my life at this moment that I like? And what are the things that are controllable stressors that I can just push to the side and just, it can wait for another day, or it can just completely disappear over time. And again, it's just that constant checking in with yourself and seeing, okay, where am I at mentally today in this moment? And I referenced a book to your wife, and it seems so cliche, but it's the Magnolia story of Chip and Joanna Gaines. One of her like most meaningful quotes in her book was, "Are you surviving or are you thriving?" And that hit me so hard when I read that, and I probably reread that passage over and over and over again. It was like, okay, anybody can just like barely keep their lips above water and survive, but is that really the life that you want to live?
Yeah.
Or do you want to enjoy the moment and really be thriving? And you have to keep it checking in mentally to hit those points.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I know exactly. I've made I like how that one says it. That's different than what I'm about to say, and I've referenced this book, Good to Great, a bunch of times already, but in the sense of the comparison that at least that I see, the similarities is of living your life. These were assessing companies for anybody that's not familiar with the book, but assessing companies that were good, and then assessing how the companies that became great companies, how do they do it? Because a lot of times when you're just living your life, quote unquote comfortably, it's hard to want to break out because you're able to pay your bills, you're able to take care of yourself and your family and your kids. So what motivation is there, or what is anything there, or is there anything there to be able to drive you to want to push even harder? If you're comfortable where you're at, it's hard to do that. So for these companies, it was a lot harder for them to break out from good to great once they obtained good, because there was no incentive essentially right in front of them, at least. Obviously there's lots of incentives. So how you've said that as well is directly applicable.
Oh yeah, and it's funny, like just being in the world of autism and repetition and uniformity and just knowing what to expect at all times is so huge to Aiden, to help him move from one task to the next. And I'm a person and a creature of habit like that too. But I have this just itching feeling constantly, and it's become more and more annoying to me. And you get that feeling like, okay, now it's time to move. It's getting to the point where I feel like I'm just going to burst from the inside if I don't make a shift or just pivot a little bit in my life and start going after those things and focusing on myself and focusing on my own self-identity. Because if you do get so stuck in a stagnant place, you never push yourself to be a better person and see what other potential things are out there for you that you would have never known that make you so much more happy than you are right now.
Yeah, and it's hard to break out of that. And I think now obviously I am not in your shoes by any means, but is it more difficult maybe to understand that and comprehend that you are going through that as well, when you said yourself, you're going through such repetition, day in and day out? How hard is it to be able to understand that you yourself are going through that, as you're doing this day in and day out? Like, is that more difficult, do you think, as it would be like being a parent, as you are?
It's hard. Like, this is the only reality I ever know. So it's not, and even at that, like, I never had just one child. I've always been a mother of twins, so I don't know the reality of only having one. I've always had a child that's on the spectrum and not on the spectrum. And this is my reality, and this is the gift that I've been given. And it's kind of, I don't like to say if it's more difficult or not. I think it's more like this is the journey that I'm on, and these are kind of the unique circumstances that actually, more than anything, are pushing me towards what I wanted to do for so long.
That's very interesting.
But it's just now bubbling to the surface of, oh my God, it took my children, and specifically my child with a disability, to really set me over that edge to say, okay, it's time. Like, I know we can do it. I just need to have faith in myself, and what's the worst that could happen, but do it myself and never live with regret. And
it's a great answer. It's you said yourself, like, out of this came something that you really always wanted to do, because, and I know I'd like to get into it, but we were talking again offline about you getting into blogging recently, and then of course, as we already mentioned, reaching out and networking with other people that are raising children similar to yours. And because of that, now all this is taking off, and God knows how many people you're going to be able to help. Yes, you've gone out and you've reached for help yourself, but in return, it's a two-way street always. You're going to be able to help so many people as well.
I hope so.
I'm telling you, you will. And, these podcasts, what's I think unique about this is not each one is good for somebody, but I'm telling you, just this one, there's going to be, and I say it all the time, even if it helps one person, then, my day is done. And I tell you, this will help one person. There's other people and that's so why I support you 100% what you're doing, and networking and blogging and all this stuff is because it's there's going to be one person that is going through the same thing as you. And I just wrote about it the other night as well on my Instagram. Like a lot of times I'm super frustrated, but you just have to keep on going. And I'd rather share those frustrations because I know somebody else is dealing with it. And then like somebody, writes you, or somebody reads your blog, and they write you like, oh man, I didn't think anybody else was going through that. I'm so glad you said it. And I think that's a lot of times how tragedy is sometimes it's so bad for you and it doesn't take away at all. But of course other people experience it. But sometimes when it happens to you, you think it only has happened to you. And then I think it's such a good idea to always reach out again, like you've said a few times. And so the fact that I already said offline again, you're sharing this with me is so exciting to me, that you're taking that step forward, because it's not easy to talk about it. It's you, it's your family. Like it's not easy. I get it, and it's something that's been tough for me. So I know it's not easy to do. So I'm so happy you're sharing, and I'm telling you, one person does get something from this, then I'm happy.
Yeah, it's so funny because even back whenever I was in school for special education, it always killed me when, everybody's got their issues. Whether they're visible or not, everybody's got a little something going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And it's becoming more apparent to me how much you have to advocate for yourself and for your children. And if you don't, like you said, there's somebody else out there that can benefit or could offer some advice and say,
sure,
I feel you, I've been in that situation, and this is what's worked for me, and I wish you the best of luck. And just I wish you the best of luck can pull you from that fetal position and say, okay, I can do this. Like, just deep breath and move on. And whether it's work or parenting, I feel like you have to have those kinds of words of affirmation sometimes.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, I couldn't agree more.
Pull you up by your bootstraps and
and that speaks towards having that speaks having that network of people, like we keep on mentioning. If you don't have the support, like you and your husband are support for each other, me and my wife are support for each other. Like, I have a hard day, she has a hard day, I'm able to talk to her and she gives me those words of encouragement. And same thing for you, and the same thing for the network that you're building. And I know when I'm having a bad day for whatever silly reason, again, if even if on social media if a friend just something as insignificant as a little comment that says, man, this really helped me out today, or something, like even things like that, I don't take for granted. They're so helpful. So I know exactly what you're talking about there.
It's funny, it's just the little things, like even just to share you a little insight of my life. So last night, the kids, their new thing is falling asleep with all the lights on. And I've always refused to be the parent that like shoves a tablet in their face and like, all right, go to bed. You're fine. As long as they're quiet, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
I've never been that parent. I try to be a little bit old school with it and read stories and say prayers and tuck everybody in, and lights go down, and twinkling night lights go on. But Aiden and Aubrey both are just these avid readers, and I walk in, Andy and I are walking up the stairs last night, tucking ourselves in, and peek in, all the lights are on in the room. Aubrey's just sprawled out, just dead to the world, and Aiden's passed out with a book on his chest and like thumb just barely out of his mouth. And I was like, that's the dream right there. Like, just to fall asleep, like just in full relaxation and full enjoyment. Like,
it's incredible.
Those are the little things that, like, I could have been so irritated walking up those stairs, and it's just those little moments.
Sure.
Whether it be a snippet of words, of a written word, or it just be your children that kind of make a come to Jesus moment. Whether you get something out of the day, out of a written word, or you have a little moment like that of just absolute contentment. It's just, you have to enjoy each and every moment, because time is fleeting, and you're never going to get this back. You're never going to get those little itty baby cuddle moments back again.
Yeah.
And what I thought I was going to pull my hair out for, 3-4 years ago, I wish I had those back now. I was like, oh, that was easy in comparison.
It's funny how your perspective shifts over time like that, but I think it's necessary for it to shift, or else you wouldn't be able to deal with that situation there. You would, if you would have had the same mindset as 3 years ago. So you just have to always be willing to be flexible and shift and change your mindset as it goes. And obviously you are doing something right, because they were knocked out like that with a book on there, so that seems pretty comfortable to me, and that's awesome that they're doing that.
Nice. But it's just funny, and even talking with other family members and other moms that are making the shift from being stay-at-home to going back to work, and childcare is expensive now, and having to really rationalize that expense and going back to work is difficult. I mean, especially if they're really little, to also your own sanity. At some point you need to have adult conversation, and you need to find that self-identity and your empowerment, where I can provide for my family a little bit. And it's something still now that I've done it for a few years, and now I'm kind of wishing, I want to spend more time with my kids. So it's this constant back and flow system, but constantly learning.
Yeah. So of course, I mean, because for anybody so I was living at the building you were managing, obviously, and that's how we met. And then you're friends with my wife, Jordan. So I just want everybody to know that you are a working mom. It's also expensive to have kids go off to childcare, as you said yourself. So what was the decision that led you to, I want to go back to work? And what are they doing right now? Because I assume your husband's working as well.
Oh, yeah. So our story is it really was just full tilt boogie from the moment the kids were born. Andy had just gotten out of the service, went into school for engineering. It was the week he graduated, 2 weeks before he started his new job. And then the kids were born a week and a half later.
Wow.
And so total shift of multiple things going on. I knew when I had the twins that I couldn't return back to the property management company that I was with. Just financially, it didn't make sense.
Yeah.
Aiden had a rough start at the beginning, so he was in NICU for a couple of days, and bounced back. He was out of NICU within 4 days, came home with us on time, and really, I kind of at that point had no expectation of a set deadline of going back to work. It was just this is my main focus right now, is full mom mode. And it's amazing how time flies. And I was just laughing about it the other day with my coworker, and it's all of a sudden I realized it had been a month and a half and I hadn't left the house.
Oh, wow.
And it was the most comical thing, going up to Food Lion at our local grocery store, and I was they have new cash registers, all their staff is new, everything seemed like a whole new, beautiful world on the horizon just on that one outing. And
Food Lion.
It was the most pathetic outing I could have gone on, but I could not have been more excited for it. But it was probably about a year, maybe a little bit less than a year, the kids, I'm lying. No, it was about 4 months, and the kids were 4 months old. And a friend of mine in the business asked if I was looking for a part-time job, and I gave it a whirl. I had them in a little, just church daycare for a couple of hours during the week. It was really, really hard for me to balance that schedule and make time to pick them up on time, and then you're paying more if you pick them up late. And I was this just isn't worth it. My time is too split, and these kids are way too little and really need so much mom attention right now. So I kind of bagged off on that. And then I started working for the company that I'm working at now. When they were about a year and a half old is when I finally said, okay, they're walking, they're feeding themselves. I am going crazy if I don't. And I picked up running again when they were about a year old and started training for some races just to give myself some headspace time.
Yeah, I think that's really important no matter what you're doing, and especially in this situation. I mean, you were talking about going stir crazy, you were talking about so many things, and I think you need to, obviously you want to take care of your children, but of course you want to be around for the long haul, and you want to take care of your children as long as you possibly, as long as you need to. So if you don't take care of yourself and you don't, stay healthy, physically and mentally, then, how are you going to take care of them? So I'm so glad you came to that realization. So you're able to go back to work as well and, focus on your health too.
Yeah, it kind of all played in together. And I've always been just this person that I don't like to sit back and let somebody just provide for me. I like to feel like I'm contributing something to something. Yep. And also just my little TJ Maxx and Marshall habit that I need to be able to rationalize. But regardless of my shopping habits, it wasn't until I started working, because up to this point, Aiden, he wasn't hitting all of his milestones necessarily at doctor's appointments, but it was starting to kind of peak on the doctor's attention list. And okay, let's wait and see. And it was about when he was 2 years old that she said, it's time for you to go see a specialist. And that was really difficult to hear. I was kind of hoping and praying some things would change and working with him more at home as best I could. And ultimately, the best that you can do isn't going to change your reality of this is what your son needs. Yeah. And that was really difficult. But we went and saw the specialist, and that was a really devastating day of, they have these boxes that they have to check, and they're just going down this list of, can your son do this? No. Can your son say this? No. Yeah. Does he walk on his tippy toes? Well, yeah, but so does my daughter. Okay. And that, and it was just all these different things, and it was just like one whack to the chest after. I
can't imagine sitting there and just as the doctor's scribbling away in front of you. I mean, that's tough. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how much you talked to Jordan about it. I mean, we just did our ultrasounds. I go with her. I like to be a part of that. And it's tough when, maybe something, our baby's healthy as far as we can tell now. But if, something comes up where we're not sure even in the moment, if it turns out to be okay, like it's absolutely terrifying. So, man, I wasn't there with you then, but I just know, even talking about my unborn child, if there's potentially, something maybe is crazy, like your mind starts going to wild places. So I can't, it's so tough. But
and especially as a parent, like every pause that any physician has, or or they step out of the room and like, why do you do that? Like, that shouldn't be allowed. That you're just putting more stress on people than is necessary. But with Aiden, it was, thankfully my mom was there with me that day of that appointment. I just remember just breaking down, because to that point I was completely ignorant to what autism was.
And this was you said that she was 2 years old then?
He was about 2 years old.
2 years old, yeah, because I know it's kind of I have such limited knowledge about this, and I kind of wanted you to teach, me a little bit here as well, but it's a process, right, of learning, like within the first couple of years, there's maybe steps that you can take to potentially try to work, with the child, because as you're going through like some of the tasks that the doctor had to do with the child, or there's certain things that you can work with the child, I guess is what I'm saying, to help them do these required, I guess, taskings almost, these check marks.
Yeah, it's interesting because and you'll learn as you go to like your pediatrician appointments, and they're going to hand you a pamphlet at just about every big milestone. So once they get to about 6 months is when I start noticing them come more regularly, and it's pretty much, can your child pick up things with 2 fingers, and is your child babbling? Are they making the mama dada sounds? Yeah. And Aubrey was hitting every milestone, no issue. Aiden, and then it's kind of like, well, they're twins. That's kind of normal. It's not uncommon for there to be a speech delay or for them to develop their own language and hierarchy between each other. But ultimately, by 2 years old, even I was starting to doubt my own excuses for it. And it does. It's really, scientifically, there's a lot of, and this is where I'm still learning too, so I'm not going to speak too much on it because I'm still learning, but there's still a lot of research as to what is causing it. and whether it's in utero or if it's something that happens after birth, but it's really a sensory issue and developmental delays, often paired with speech delays. But it's interesting because certain things that Aiden can't, and I say can't with parentheses because remains to be seen, but the things that he can do that Aubrey can't, that just blows my mind, and the things that grab his attention that don't grab other children's. Like, we were at a hayride last year out at the beach, and every other kid is looking out into the distance, pointing out pumpkins, and Aiden's looking between the slats and watching the wheels turn and the gears of wagon turning. And same thing with building. Like, this boy can build these blocks and get them perfectly straight and aligned, and organizes his trucks in a perfectly aligned and by color and shape. And like, never in a million years would my daughter have the patience nor time. Like,
I wouldn't have the patience to do that.
But what other people see as a deficit, I see as like, okay, clearly that's not capturing his attention enough for him to even give two hoots about it. Like, he's working on far superior things, or things that captivate him more. And
I think that's incredible, and I love that you shared that. And I like to think of to what you just described and think about other people that may be struggling with their own things that people see as deficient, quote unquote deficiencies again. Like, everybody has things that they're good at, everybody has things that they're bad at, but I think you need to find, that just because somebody may say that is a deficiency, like, obviously that is a huge strength, that already what he's doing with the organizational skills and his observational skills, and he's just running with it, and I would just tell anybody to just run with what you're good at, because he is good at that, and he's going to just continue building on top of that, and he's going to do amazing things, going in that direction. And just because it's not in another direction that society says it should be or whatever, it doesn't mean it's a right or a wrong thing. There's definitely not a right or wrong thing when it comes to that. And I would, because I definitely, if I'm not good at something, then so be it. Either practice it. If you're still not learning it, then maybe that's not for you, and then focus on what you're good at, and just go with that. Exactly. And respect those who are superior at things that you are not, but be in awe of those who are. I mean, it's just, I don't know. I feel like if you fixate on the negative too much and fixate on the fact, okay, so he's not talking. Sure. Well, there's absolutely zero way for me to force him or anyone to speak. And we can work on things. But if that's not his avenue, then okay, then we find something else that ultimately what's supposed to come and what will be, and focus on the positive. What is grasping his attention? What is he excelling at? Absolutely. It's the same thing in life. Like, if you keep fixating on the negatives of every little thing, how's that going to make you feel? You're going to feel like crap every single day if you focus on those negatives. Where if you find those little victories, like Aiden repeating the M sound to me the other day, it was like, did everybody see that? Like, you just want to shout it from the rooftops. And same thing with Aubrey. I mean, the girl can be the most sweet and caring thing, and to focus on the negative as physicians do in doctors' offices. I know that's their job, but I just can't even put myself there. I just keep pushing towards I mean, let them do their job, and then, your job is to exactly do what you just said, push on the positives, and I think you're doing really well with that.
Oh, thanks.
What kind of, so when you've been reaching out, how have you reached out? On what platforms have you reached out to other parents in this? I'm sure anything, that, like Facebook, or I'd like to get into talk about your blogging too, but are you being able to meet people that way, and then maybe even in person too?
So I've really kind of started again with the being a little bit skeptical and still accepting of what my reality is. And so mostly online is where my platform is, and Instagram is the main one. There are so many mothers and groups of all walks of life with children that not only have autism, but other disabilities that are similar, or just disabilities in general, that you have to advocate for your children every single day, just like you have to advocate for yourself. And there's one mother in particular that really captivated me, and she and her children, they actually went to Panama to do some stem cell research, which is kind of, if you'll do some research on it, it's big with autism right now. And just reading whatever your personal opinions are on the research, I hold none. But it was really interesting to see this mother take her child to another country, and her biggest thing is advocate like a mother. And she was one of the first people that I could write to on there, like, this is the most incredible and scientifically intriguing thing I've ever witnessed. And please continue to share, because I'm just like hungry for her knowledge on this. And she immediately wrote back, and to have that personal response back of mother to mother was incredible. And other parent had milestones that they shared online, and just like, this is incredible, go big guy, like, you just keep doing what you're doing, you are just destined for moving mountains. And just advocating for each other's children. And then starting to drop hints about my hope to start this blog very soon has been well received, and it's given me the push to finally just
I
bring
absolutely
it to
think you should do it. I fully support you. I was very apprehensive to start this, and I tell Jordan she'd like to start one too. Hopefully she I know you guys are talking about it like you said, but you just got to start it, and if you start it with good intentions, ultimately I think it's just good to share it for yourself. I mean, just do it for you, and then only hope that you can help other people along the way, and you're bound to help other people, like we've said a ton of times. So it's going to be great. I just start sooner than later.
Yes. One of these days I'll make sure I've got my idea of what it's supposed to be, and I'm a huge journaler, and I think I advocate to all mothers and parents in general to journal, because it gets whatever those emotions are that you need off your chest, for one, and then you can reread it and say, wow, you were in a crazy state. Or you can look back and say, yes, and reaffirm those topics that you want to discuss, that you've read and never gotten full answers on different resources. And it's journaling. Journaling
is an amazing tool. I can't imagine for parenting, like, to see some of the emotional states, like you said, that you've been in. But even for myself, I've done it. I don't do it consistently, but I have done it periodically throughout the last couple of years, and it's incredible going back and reading what mindset I was in, or what goals I had set for myself, what I did obtain, what I did not obtain, or what I followed through with, or vice versa. And I think it almost keeps like I don't know if the term track record is good, but like, are you staying consistent with the things that, like, hey, today is this day, I want to do this in the future. So then maybe when you get to that point in the future and you read back, be like, wow, I'm consistently not doing what I said I'd do, when I'm journaling it. So it's able to, essentially, you're keeping track, like you're pulling metrics for yourself, right? Because if you're not analyzing data, then how do you know if you have to change or not? Necessarily, it can be hard to know when to change if you don't see a pattern or a lack of. So to be able to write something down and journal is great, and just getting your thoughts out and reading your thoughts can be it's hard to describe. So I think I was going to say, even if you don't want to start blogging yet, just start writing things down, but you're already doing that. So I know it feels good to write it down, so just start writing it down.
Well, and it's crazy because you can really see the evolution of yourself, and you can really see what were the things that really pushed you to
much more tangible,
a positive or a negative. Yeah, and you can kind of go back, and I'm big on words of affirmation and finding passages of books that I really, really love and writing them down so that I can reference them later when I need that boost of just get yourself in gear or it'll be okay. And I feel like when you can see that momentum being built and you can go back and reread it, it kind of re-energizes you. It gives you that ability of, I had that power at that point.
Yeah, that's a really good idea.
Need to just refocus it and it'll come. It just, I think journaling, again, that's the thing about just overall web that drives me nuts, is it doesn't give you enough to just go back and hold it and look at it. And when you can actually hold something and look at it, it holds you more accountable in my eyes.
Accountability is a good one. You're absolutely right. And that's what I was saying, like writing it down and being able to see if like you actually went through with what you said you were going to do. And you know, it's written there. You wrote it. So it's not like somebody else was like, hey, you need to do this, and you just didn't follow through with it. But now you're not even being true to yourself, potentially. So I think that hits a lot more home for me when I'm doing stuff. Or if I wrote something down and I was so emotional, I was so passionate about it, now here I am months or weeks down the road and I didn't follow through with it, then like, come on, man. I that's what I say to myself. I'm like, dude, you got to really, like, you care about this and you're not following through. You really need to make a change. And it's good. I don't think there's any negatives from doing that. Like, regardless of if you're figuring out that, like, it's like failure. Like, it's not just because you didn't follow through with it, that's fine. But now it's not fine if you don't do something with that data. Like, if you see you're consistently not following through with what you're journaling about or the goals you're setting for yourself, then all right, then you got to do something about it, because at least you've now have a plan and a way to formulate or at least deduce that you are not following through with the stuff that you set out to do. And I know for your case, being able to do everything that you want to do and are doing right now, it's incredible. And then you're being able to share that, because and now as a blogger, I can imagine, like, if you've been journaling consistently for a long time, you can go back and you essentially have a data bank of information that you can pull, because maybe one, you don't have any content, and maybe two, you know exactly what you want to write about, but you can't exactly remember how you felt about it that day, or maybe the little details of it. So now you're able to go back and never forget how you felt that certain day.
And I think it's really, just like you said, the way that you can go back and see something you may have been heated in the moment when you wrote down, to then going back and analyzing it and saying, okay, I had to readjust a little bit here. But then you could go on a whole nother journal entry on just rereading that one. They've started doing it at Aiden's school. He spends half the day in a special education class with the public school, and the teacher and I have a composition notebook that we pass back and forth every day in his backpack. So I know what he did that day, things that made him happy, things that made him sad.
Awesome.
And I can mark on them and say, yep, that's pretty typical of Aiden, or interesting, that's a good one to know. And because they see a different side of him in an environment that I don't ever see. And as a parent, that's just invaluable knowledge of, you just want to be a fly on the wall and see what's going on. Yeah. And I think the more you can write things down and reassess, it gives you the opportunity to not fire from the hip, but to really get to the nitty gritty of what was it that made you write it, or how were you feeling? How was your child feeling? What was the circumstance of that event? And really give you pause for a moment. I think it's important. Yeah,
absolutely. It's a direct snapshot. You wrote it as is. It's not like you're going to go think back and you're going to have to clear cobwebs away. And, well, maybe I said it this way, or maybe I actually thought I was going to do it this way, or my goal actually set this way. Well, nope, it's right here. This is what I said I'd do, or this is what actually happened that day. And boom, it's right there in front of you, and you're able to pull from that. I think that's an incredible thing to do. Is there anything... I really hope, I'm going to try to push this out in the best direction that this podcast would be most helpful for this episode. But is there anything, if there's a parent listening that is in a similar situation, that you as a parent, that you said you didn't come to some realizations until the children were 2 years old. Is there something that you could tell them, like maybe they're struggling with realization, or even more so on top of that, and this is probably a two-part question now, something that you wish you had known earlier that would have made your life easier?
Oh, geez, Chris, that's a heavy one.
Let's
honestly,
yeah. Go ahead.
To dissect it a little bit, I think as a parent in general, I think regardless, say you're facing a very similar situation as our family, nothing's going to prepare you for it. I mean, there's absolutely zero parent that's going to be exposed to something and just say, yep, got it, I know exactly what to do, because every child is so different. And that's the beautiful thing, is you are constantly learning from these little humans. And I almost think there's an innocence in it, because you can look at people all day long, grown adults that you're learning from, but there's something about young children that just captivates you. And it forces you to really humble yourself. It really, it's not about the child at that exact moment, because your emotions are your emotions. Your child at that point has no idea. All they know is that mom and dad love them and that they're there. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. They could live in a cardboard box for all they care. As long as they have those that love them around them, that's your journey to fight right there. And find someone, whether it be your spouse, your partner, a family member, that's going to advocate with you. And I think more stereotypically, dads, it takes them a little bit longer, especially if it's their son that's being diagnosed with something like that, to really accept that things are going to be a little bit more challenging and quote unquote less normal. But just fight the good fight, but work on yourself, because all your child needs is just your love and your support, and you just find your unique way to encourage their education. Because regardless of any child, the way that they learn and they grow and how they play is so different child to child, regardless of any shortcomings.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's all I could say, is just stay
phenomenal.
strong and confident in yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Stay strong. And I like when you had mentioned much earlier, like writing things down that you can reach back to. So maybe you're having a moment where you at least feel like you're a little bit more weak than you normally are. You find yourself in a bad place, and you're able to go back and read something that that will help you in that moment. And I think that's a great idea for anybody, and especially in this instance, because I can't, it can be so emotionally tiring, absolutely mentally and emotionally tiring. And that was phenomenal. So thank you for talking about that specifically. And would there be anything else that you're like, I wish I, like something singularly, like I wish I knew this? Or I mean, that might be even just a general parenting tip too, but what is there something that stands out, like I wish I could tell myself this like a year ago or 2 years ago? Or
I think we talked about it earlier, there's really no handbook. There's no handbook on how to be a parent. There's no handbook on how to be a good parent. You have to listen to your inner voice. And when you think something is just not right, listen to it. And when you think now's the time to push, listen to it. And I've gone through really scary daycare situations and had to pull the kids out because it just freaked me out what was going on, to no, I think they're ready for this, and same for myself, and just going for it. But you have to listen to yourself. There's something in you that's just saying do it or don't do it, and you're the parent, and call it. And the worst thing that could happen is, okay, well, better luck next time, because that clearly didn't work, but all I can say is just listen to your inner voice.
No, I love it. I absolutely love it. And I love that you shared everything with us. Shared it with me, and then obviously for anybody that's listening to it, it means a lot to me, and I know it means a lot to them as well. And it's hard. I know even anything when you're sharing like on a one-way audience is difficult by itself, and then when you're sharing something that's so near and dear to your heart, and especially when you're speaking about your family, it's never easy. So I'm very honored for you to open up and speak about that. And I know that it's just a beginning of your own journey, like you said, with your blogging and with your beginning to network with similar parents. I would, like I said earlier, you have my support in any way I can help you. And I wanted to help you with this too, because as I said in the beginning, like, this is conversations with inspirational people, and it's really inspiring to me what you're doing, and you're starting to share and you're starting to reach out. And I just, want to continue to be one of those individuals that inspires you, to continue to do what you're doing. And I would hope, again, anyone listening, regardless of, whether I'm talking about careers or parenting or whatever, like, just go out there. And it may be so hard for you to talk about and awkward at first to talk about on, in a stage like this or in blogging or anything, but I know you will inevitably help somebody else. So it's tough, but I promise you'll get over it, and you just think about the people that you will help, and because think about the people that are helping, you in your situation, or the people that have helped me in all of my situations, and you're always so humbled and thankful for the people that have reached out and helped you. So just remember that feeling, and then go out there and reciprocate that feeling and go out and help other people. So yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you, Chris. This has been a blast. I really, just speaking on a lot of these topics has given me plenty to journal about this evening, and I'm just so thankful to be a part of this. Thank you.
Oh, I'm glad I could help. Awesome, Brittany. Well, again, one more time, I really mean it from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much for being here with me today and sharing your story. And like we've said, if we share and we help one person, then my job is done here and your job is done there, because that's one more person that didn't have help before. So, regardless of how tough it is for you, regardless how tough it is for me or anybody listening, go out there and go inspire somebody else, because I know you will. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, see you, Brittany.
Take care.